Good evening. Welcome and thank you all for joining us this evening and days to come for Conifer Area Council's third virtual town hall meeting. It is Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. And a very, very special thanks to the Conifer Area Chamber for their community support of tonight's town hall meeting. Go to their website at goconifer.com to stay informed and to find out what's going on. So what is going on around here? We have several updates tonight. The first one is Jana Spiker. She's the Region 1 West Program Resident Engineer with CDOT. So Jana, if you want to give a little CDOT update, that would be great.
Yes, thanks, Shirley. Hello and good evening. My name is Jana Spiker, and I'm a resident engineer with CDOT Region 1, and I'm responsible for delivering and managing engineering and transportation projects in Jefferson County, which includes your community here in Conifer. Tonight, I'd like to update you on what CDOT's been doing in your area and also provide you with information about upcoming projects. So this summer and early fall, you may have noticed CDOT maintenance crews did some overlay work. So they overlaid or placed new asphalt on 285 between Kings Valley Drive and Schaefer's Crossing to improve the asphalt surface condition and drivability, and also to help improve conditions until CDOT is able to fully resurface 285 between Foxton Road and Pine Junction in 2024. So in the meantime, CDOT will continue to perform these maintenance activities along discrete segments as needed until that time occurs. More recently, in mid-October, CDOT maintenance completed a striping project along the corridor to upgrade the longitudinal pavement markings or lane markings from 4-inch wide to 6-inch wide to help improve lane delineation and safety along 285. You may also notice that these new lane lines also have large black stripes accompanying them to increase daytime and wet condition visibility. And lastly, but certainly not least, the 285 Kings Valley Interchange project has recently been able to make some headway and work through some of the details regarding the new environmental resources discovered late last year. Just as a reminder, these new findings were a land conservation easement and a historic property, which is also known as the Conley Coffee Shop. CDOT's been able to determine that these findings are not fatal flaws to being able to implement the preferred interchange alternative as it was identified in the 2004 environmental assessment, and we have a higher level of confidence that the project can be accomplished within the original cost estimate of $14 million. So with this knowledge, CDOT will continue to finalize the NEPA or environmental reevaluation process and work with the State Historic Preservation Office and other environmental resource agencies to identify necessary mitigation measures, as well as begin contacting affected property owners to begin the right-of-way process. CDOT intends to have final right-of-way plans prepared by the spring of 2021 and will then seek authorization from our chief engineer to proceed with the right-of-way acquisition process. Once authorization is received, property owners would then be contacted by CDOT to start this process. The right-of-way process typically takes around 12 months, and we anticipate this being a critical path to being able to have a shovel-ready project by summer of 2022. At this time, I do want to note that CDOT intends on conducting a public meeting early next year specifically for this project so that we can bring the community up to speed and connect with affected property owners. So stay tuned for those details at our next town hall meeting. Also, I want to highlight that a project website will be set up in the next several weeks, which will contain this information, renderings of the proposed interchange, and much, much more. So please be on the lookout for that link, which I will send to Shirley in the Conifer Town Hall community, as well as you can use your internet search engine to Google or search for CDOT 285 Kings Valley. I find this to be very encouraging news as it gives us a time frame to understand when a construction project could actually be started and also understand what the actual funding shortfall is. As such, this project remains a high priority for CDOT and our region, and our management is currently working on funding strategies to identify the rest of the funding needed to make the project whole. Again, I'm inspired by this news, and I hope to continue reporting more progress at our next town hall meeting in 2021. I wish everyone a safe and healthy holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year. Thank you.
Jana, great news. You got a lot to share. That's great. Okay, wonderful. And yes, we will get that on the Conifer Area Council website, and we'll also get it out in an email to everybody. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Next, we have Melanie Swearingen, Director of the Conifer Area Chamber of Commerce. Melanie.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Shirley. And we are thrilled to be sponsoring the town hall meeting tonight. Conifer Area Council does a fantastic job bringing together information to our community, and we all appreciate your effort. So thank you to Shirley, to your board, and to all the volunteers that dedicate so much of your time working on this committee or organization, sorry. As far as the update from the chamber, I'm sure many of you have heard that effective Friday at 5 p.m., the Colorado Department of Health and Environment will move several Denver metro counties, including Jefferson County, to level red severe risk in the COVID-19 dial framework. So I have been working a lot today, especially with businesses, on what this means to them. As far as the basics, the general or the overview, indoor dining at restaurants will not be allowed, and restaurants will be going to takeout, curbside, or delivery options instead. Outdoor dining prohibited within those in household. Call will be at 8 a.m. Gyms will be limited to a 15% capacity or 10 people indoors per room, or outdoors in groups than less than 10, and reservations will be required. Indoor events will be closed. Outdoor events are permitted at 25% capacity, not to exceed 75 people. Both critical and non-critical retail are limited to 50% capacity and are being asked to increase their curbside pickup and delivery services. So the Conifer Chamber is working alongside the Jefferson County Business Task Force, which includes our county commissioners and our county attorney and many more, to help businesses figure out what these changes mean to them, and as much as possible figure out how we can help them to remain open within these guidelines. We've been pushing out a survey to all of the businesses in the Jeffco area and encouraging them to fill it out so we can monitor the economic impact and try to come up with creative ways to support businesses during this time and keep them open as much as possible. In addition, I'm continuing to work with businesses regarding funding opportunities and helping businesses walk through the funding applications to get additional help, as well as working alongside Jeffco and distributing PPE supplies through the Jeffco PPE Supply Grant. Moving into the holiday season and what to expect. Normally we have so many things going on with the Festival of Trees and the parade. As far as what we have for this holiday season, we're creating an entire event called Light Up Conifer, sponsored by First Bank. This event allows us to safely celebrate our community that we all love. The first part of this event is we're creating a free online holiday shopping guide to make shopping locally easy this year. So you just go to goconifer.com, download the guide. The guide lists what stores offer online shopping, call-in ordering, or curbside pickup, and many other options. The second piece of this, instead of doing a parade along Sutton Road, we are doing kind of a reverse parade. We are hosting a business window decorating competition sponsored by Marketing Type Guys in the UPS store, and a residential home decorating competition sponsored by Brooks Place Tavern and First Colorado Roofing. The winners of the competitions will get a gift basket filled with goodies from local businesses. To participate in one of the competitions, you can sign up at goconifer.com. And then to view all of the lights, we are working with My Mountain Town. And My Mountain Town, Sharon Schrock, is creating a map that you can log on to and see everybody that is participating, so you can go and drive around with your family, or just drive around and give you something to do to take a look at all of the festive lights. And then finally, as you prepare for the holidays, please continue to support our local businesses and do all of your holiday shopping this year right here in the Conifer area. So thank you very much for having me tonight.
Great, thanks, Melanie. And thanks for all of your hard work to help the businesses. This is definitely a time we need to support them. So I hope
it is. They're very much struggling right now, especially with the news of the red level. It's a difficult time for businesses right now, but a lot of them have a very positive attitude and are doing the best they can to get through it. But definitely the support from the community is essential.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll hope to get this video out to a lot of people, and a lot of people will support, hopefully. So thank you. So next we have Peggy. Peggy Catlin is the first vice chair and director, our director with RTD. And Peggy's going to give an update. Peggy.
Thank you, Shirley. And I apologize, I have neither prepared notes nor resources to draw from, as I'm doing this very remotely from the Eastern time zone. But a couple of updates that just come to mind. First and foremost, we had a long selection process and hired a new general manager and CEO who started November 9th. That was Deborah Johnson. We had hired an interim CEO from February until this point who really helped us through this COVID transition. And I can't thank him enough. But we have hired our first ever woman GM and CEO, and she comes from California, and she's highly regarded. So we're really excited to welcome her, and she's hit the ground running, just doing great things. And her focus is truly community outreach, stakeholder engagement, and also working with our employees to make us a much more efficient agency. It's really been a struggle for, just as with many businesses, it's been a struggle for RTD with our drop in ridership. We're at 40% of our ridership from historic numbers, and our sales and use tax collections have decreased. So our budget is very, very much reduced from previous years. So shortly after the onset of COVID, we implemented a service change that really reduced our service to 60% of previous service levels, which had even though we only have 40% of our ridership. And the focus of those routes was really on the more heavily traveled areas and for those transit dependent people, primarily in the urban area. And as a result, the Conifer and Evergreen areas have suffered, and with the reduction in service to the mountain areas, because quite frankly, when you have less than 10 people on a bus, the subsidy is pretty high. And so it just, when you look at the district as a whole, it made sense to reduce service in those areas. We are looking at the January service changes. We do service changes 3 times a year. And proposed for those January service changes are what I'm going to call a suspension, and not elimination, but a suspension of the CV and EV routes. And as hard as that is, we really tried to see if there was a way to do that. It just did not pan out from a cost perspective. So they're suspended, and that means that they could come back if ridership should be demonstrated to increase. But we're looking at ways to provide alternative service to those areas that would include working with Dr. Cog for its rideshare, for its van pool rideshare program. And so we're working with folks who are regular riders on the CV and the EV routes for that. It's really been tough, and I've really tried hard to maintain minimum routes, but it's really been a balancing act and certainly a budgetary act. With respect to the 2021 budget, we because we are down so far and we're only operating at 60% of our service levels, we are being forced to look at layoffs. And right now, it's unfair for taxpayers to pay for drivers who are sitting in the break room without anything to do. And so we are looking at unfortunately, layoffs, and trying to figure out ways to do that in a manner that is thoughtful and compassionate with our drivers, as well as some of our salaried employees. We've looked at cutting overhead. We've reduced temporarily reduced salaries of some of our highest paid workers in an effort to cut overhead. Those are some of the steps we've taken. The other thing is that with the November election, we have some new board members, and probably the most important one for this area is that Natalie Minton was term limited. She represented mostly the Golden, Arvada, Wheat Ridge area, but Jefferson County. And her replacement is Marjorie Sloan, who many of you know used to be the mayor of Golden. So I look forward to welcoming her to the board of directors along with some other new members. And one more thing is that there was an accountability committee that was formed with the legislature, and Tammy probably knows this, but they're working with RTD to really take a look and see ways to make RTD a higher performing agency, better performing. And they're looking at such things as operations, taking a real big look at the finances, and also looking at some possible legislative remedies that would help out with some things that are obsolete, such as our fare box recovery ratio that's in state statute. So with that, I'll close and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. And Melanie, I plan when I return to Colorado to take a drive up into Conifer and enjoy all that you're offering creatively through the holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy, very much. Okay, I know that most Conifer community residents are pretty interested in what's happening with the commercial and the residential developments that are being planned in the Conifer area. And Heather Gutherless, Senior Long Range Planner with Jefferson County Planning and Zoning, is always so wonderful to come up and to present, just to let us know what all is going on. So Heather, please let us know what all's happening.
Thanks. Yeah, there is quite a bit that's happening. So I have a lot to talk about tonight. It'll be really, really fun. So tonight, the first thing that I want to talk about is that the Planning and Zoning office front desk is closed. And it's also not just planning and zoning, but it's also building safety and transportation and engineering. And this was due to the increase of the community spread of COVID. We just don't have enough staff that are able to come into the office to be able to staff those areas. So we do all continue to work remotely, and you can still come in and, well, you can't come in, but you can call in or you can schedule a virtual appointment if you have any questions for planning and zoning. Please check our website for detailed information. At this time, there isn't a known reopening date, but we will definitely let you know when we are back open again for people to come visit us. The next big thing that I wanted to talk about, which is exciting, is the water policies updates. We have a final draft of all of the policy changes and new policies that we're proposing for the water policies in the comprehensive master plan. And there is a planning commission hearing scheduled for a couple of weeks from now, December 9th, 2020. It is at 6:15 p.m. The link that is in this slideshow hopefully will be added to the presentation information, and you'll be able to click on that and go to the draft of the plan. Please submit any comments by December 2nd. You can submit them later than that, or you can come to the Planning Commission hearing and give any testimony. However, if you submit written comments after December 2nd, it may be harder for the Planning Commission to read and really digest everything that you might have to say. So we do recommend that they get it a week ahead of time with the rest of their packet. Also, I just want to remind everybody that the policies in the Comprehensive Master Plan are advisory and they're not regulatory. Another thing that I don't have a slide about, but I wanted to let people know about, is the Public Health. Jefferson County Public Health is updating their on-site wastewater treatment regulations. And those regulations regulate the construction of new septic systems. So for that, please check out their website, Jefferson County Public Health, and comments are due very quickly on November 23rd for this first round. Another big item is that we have a survey for our short-term rental regulation project. We don't have a first draft. Last April, we were proposing meetings to get people's feedback on what should be in the first draft. It's taken us some time to kind of navigate COVID and figure out how we're going to do this next. And so we have formulated a survey. The link is on the slide. It's open until December 14th. And then staff will use that information to create a first draft of the regulations. And just as a reminder, the county does currently have regulations regarding short-term rentals, but we've heard both that existing regulations don't adequately address the impacts of short-term rentals, and that they place an undue burden on residents wishing to operate short-term rentals. So we're hoping with this regulation update, we might be able to strike a better balance between those two things. Just very briefly, I know last time I talked about how we are going to be proposing some updates to our defensible space regulations. We're still working on that, so I just wanted to kind of let you know that it's still a work in progress. Now on to the really relevant information. I guess everything else is relevant too, but the things that a lot of people get very interested in are our development proposals. There are 27 cases in the Conifer area right now. For new cases that I'll be talking about, we have 4 new pre-applications, 3 updates to rezoning applications, and 2 subdivision updates. There haven't been any new formal applications, but we have had some other movement. First, just as a general overview for what our pre-application is, it is a very preliminary type of request where the applicant comes in with some very general plans, and then we as a staff internally for the county review those proposals. We give the applicant an idea of what some of the big issues might be that they would face if they do decide to move forward. And with that information, the applicant decides whether or not they want to go to a formal application. And about 40 to 50% of those don't move forward. With these pre-applications, there isn't any formal public notice, but they can all be found on our active cases search page. So the first pre-application that I wanted to talk to you about is on Foxtrot Lane. So here is Highway 285. There's the interchange with Highway 73 and Kitty Drive. And this is about a half an acre, and it's proposed to be rezoned to allow for 13 residential units. The plan recommends limited commercial or residential, and this is in the Conifer Activity Center. The next pre-application is off of North Turkey Creek Road. So this to the east here is where Highway 285 would be, and then to the west would be Highway 73. This is kind of in the middle. Here's High Drive, and this is 11.25 acres. The proposal is to rezone and to allow for 3 residential lots. The plan recommendation for this area is 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres. The next property that I wanted to talk about is near the county boundary. So this kind of grayed out area is actually Park County. This property is off of 285 near the Pine Junction. It's 8.21 acres, and their proposal is to rezone to expand some commercial zoning that already exists to allow for additional commercial retail structures. This is in the Pine Junction Activity Center and recommended for mountain scale neighborhood, commercial, or residential uses. The next pre-application is just west of the Kings Valley area. The commercial buildings that you see here are the Kings Valley Commercial Center properties. And this property is 30 acres. The applicant wants to subdivide this into 2 residential lots. The zoning is agricultural too, which is a 10-acre minimum lot size. And so this does not need a rezoning. The plan, and therefore the comprehensive master plan recommendations don't apply to this type of case. Next, I want to talk about the rezoning cases that we have had some movement on. Just to have you To remind you of the process for rezoning, the first step in a rezoning is a community meeting. And the community meeting is where an applicant can get ideas about what the community thinks of their proposal and maybe ways that they might be able to modify it. The rezoning application itself is when somebody wants to change the allowed uses on their property. Let's say they want to go from an agricultural zoning to more of a commercial zoning. They would have to go through the county rezoning process. There's a formal application, there's a referral process where homeowners associations are notified and agencies are notified. It goes back and forth on this referral process. Then when the case is ready, it goes to a planning commission hearing and a board of county commissioners hearing where public testimony is taken. The first case that we have an update on is Mountain Air Ranch. This is near South Deer Creek Canyon Road and Mica Mine Gulch. The proposal is to rezone or to amend the existing zoning to increase the number of rental units and recreational facilities that are currently on the property. It's 144.86 acres, and it recently completed its second referral. The plan recommends an area of stability, so kind of try and keep the same types of uses in the area. The next rezoning is what was being called Conifer Commons. The first big thing that I wanted to let you know is that the name of this official development plan would actually have to change. We already have a rezoning that is called Conifer Commons, and so this will need to change its name. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. I'm sure that it will cause some confusion, and we apologize for that. This is the rezoning to allow for 188 residential units. They did decrease the application so that the commercial is no longer an option. It is on about 47 acres, and they just recently completed their second referral. The plan recommends residential with a maximum of 4 homes per acre. The next rezoning that I wanted to talk about is in the Aspen Park area. It's the Aspen Park Auto Parts store, and they want to rezone to allow a larger auto parts store. This did go to the Planning Commission on November 4th, and they approved it, and it is going to the Board of County Commissioners on December 8th. Next, there's a couple subdivision plats that I wanted to give you updates on. The subdivision process is where somebody actually creates the lot lines. So all the land uses are already in place and they're just subdividing the property. So the first property that is moving along in the process is off of Hillview Road. 285 is to your south, and then Hillview Road is off to the west. This is a 42-acre property where they're proposing to create 2 new residential lots with 1 remaining 30-acre lot. And it just completed its second referral. And the last subdivision plat that I wanted to tell you about is in the Homestead area. This is a 37.99 acre property. It has suburban residential 2 zoning, which allows for 2-acre minimum lots, and they are proposing to create 9 2-acre residential lots. They just completed their second referral. All of the case manager information about all of those cases is on each of the slides, so please contact them if you have any questions or need any additional information about any of these projects or development cases. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather. So all of this information will be on the Conifer Area Council.org website, and we have the development updates updated every single month. So just go to our website and you'll see all of that information there. So next we have Peter Barkman and John Wallach with the Conifer Area Council Water Resource Study Action Team. They've been working really hard and they've come up with new findings regarding sustainability of our Conifer area water resource. So I think John Wallach is going to be first. John.
Good evening, folks. Peter Barkman and I will present the report from the Water Resource Study Action Team, oftentimes called the Water Committee. The group is organized to inform the community about water resource issues. Let me share the screen. And our initial focus was on a groundwater seminar a few years ago. This year, we're focusing on rendering groundwater monitor data that we've gathered just recently. The well monitor network is shown here. This past year, we have obtained 15 years of history on 10 wells from Gen Water. And those are the green symbols shown on the map here. And the red lines are cross sections. We're taking the 15 years worth of 1 minute samples, removing all of the well pumping activity and looking at a time series of static water levels to keep an eye on where we're going with our well-based community. And we've got 3 trend lines that we're showing for the 5-year periods, 05 to 10, 10 to 15, and so on. So to see any of the details from the water monitor system, you can go to the Conifer Area Council website, and if you navigate through the it's the area issues pull-down menu and then water resources, you can look at if you click on any of the green symbols, you'll get the static water level for 15 years. If you click on any one of those red lines, you'll get the cross-section, which gives you more information about the topology, rock type, and fractures. So that's been moving along well. Now a summary of our centralized systems. With the solid blue line on this map shows the boundary for the Conifer activity area or activity center. And we have in this, within the activity center, 363 wells and 3 centralized systems. The system down by Staples is CWA CSA. The system up by King Soopers is Aspen Park Metro District, APMD. And then at Safeway, we have Conifer Metro District. How much water do they pump in the 3 centralized systems? This year for 2020, we've had a total of 33,000 gallon per day average over the year, which means about 37 acre feet per year right now is where we're at. You can see with the pandemic, it seems like it's brought the consumption down a bit. The centralized systems recharge performance, and I've just pulled together the water data for water year 2020, which ends in the end of October. The green dots at the bottom are for CSA. Their decree is 40 years old, and they didn't have a recharge requirement at that time. The red symbols here show the Aspen Park Metro District. They originally had a 95% recharge requirement, and after having problems with their recharge galleries, had their decree changed to where they can also recharge or release to surface into South Turkey Creek. And then the blue symbols here are for Conifer Metro District. They currently have a 95% recharge requirement in their decree, and you can see their 10-year average. The result is that in the last 10 years, we have about 45.9 million gallons of water that has been pumped from wells up here and then released to surface. The blue represents North Turkey Creek, and the red represents South Turkey Creek. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Peter Barkman, who can explain one of the current issues that we see with our water supplies. So, let me see. I offered the, am I still sharing?
Peter, you need to unmute.
Okay, there we go. I wanted to put what John was talking about in perspective of our overall groundwater resource. And our community relies entirely on groundwater from a fractured crystal and bedrock aquifer. And you have to look at this as a water balance, which is like a bank account. We have water coming in, we have water going out, and there's water in storage. And in terms of sustainability, we need to maintain that water in storage to cover us through our cycles of up and down and how we use that water. And the water coming in is recharged primarily from precipitation. Snow melt in the spring soaks into the ground, fills up the fractures in the rock. The water going out is water that's evaporated directly or taken up by root systems of plants, or it runs off into the streams, or it's what we use by pumping our wells to supply our homes and businesses. The thing, the water in recharge, that which is not natural is either from irrigation, and we don't have a whole lot of that up here, or it's from infiltration from our individual wastewater treatment systems or our leach fields, or the infiltration from the centralized systems, which is what John was just talking about. And the recharge is really critical to maintaining our bank account. So we've got something to draw on a continuous basis, and we can count on it. And it's also a high priority for sustainability in the master plan, and it's a priority in our Conifer US 285 area community plan. And it really is very important to stress how critical it is to maintain some recharge out of these systems. And as you've seen, Aspen Park District got away from it somewhat, and then the Conifer Metro District has been sort of doing okay, but there's a change in the wind here that we want to alert the community to. Here's a map showing those two districts that do use recharge, with CMD being the main one. But what's coming up is CMD has a permit with Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment to discharge, to recharge, take their treated water and recharge it in the aquifer. It has certain water quality limits. And what's happened, the limit for total dissolved solids, which is basically how salty it is, they have been exceeding it. And their limit's 400 milligrams per liter, and it's been as high as 1,500. They've been issued a service notice of violation, cease and desist order by CDPHE, and CDM is currently working with, CMD is working with CDPHE to mitigate this issue. They've hired a design build engineering firm to look at alternatives, and the way it's shaping up is to get away from recharge and go entirely to release into the stream system. And that gets us out of their replenishing our bank account with the water that they're pumping, which works against our community goals. What we have here is one agency with one set of requirements, and then the community, the county, and to a lesser extent, the Division of Water Resources that don't agree with each other. So CMD is also currently going to water court to firm up some of their conditional water rights, and the application is silent on recharge. And yet the existing decree does call for the 95% that John mentioned. The time period right now for any input from the community is by the end of this month, November 30th. Anyone who wants to file statements of opposition has to get them in by then. So what's next? Our Water Action Committee study action team, we will be working and following what's going on with this issue. We also want to work with the county and the state agencies to see if we can't work up some way to keep recharge as a priority activity of how we work with our water resources. Now, if there are citizens that are within the area that may be impacted directly by this, they need to be aware that they do have the option to become part of the water court process. Then they get a place at the table to discuss it. And we're going to go ahead and post these links on the website, but there are web addresses where they can find out more information about the application for the water rights. They can get forms to file. And there's also a link to the CDPHE Water Quality Control Division where they can learn more about that. So I just want people to be aware that this is going on, and those who can, it's time to get involved. November 30th is coming up pretty quickly. So that sums it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And like Peter said, we will have that information on the coniferareacouncil.org website, along with a lot of information that Peter and John have prepared to really explain our water situation up here. So it's a learning experience that also tells you how you could get involved. Next, we have Senator Tammy Story. She's going to be talking about updates of the state Senate. Tammy.
Yes, 1 second. Let me get my screen ready. Thanks. I want to say hello to all of the Conifer folks and those in surrounding areas that are joining us or will listen to this at some time in the near future. I'm Senator Tammy Story, and I represent Senate District 16, which includes the foothills of Jefferson County, as well as southern Boulder County, all of Gilpin County, and the southwest corner of Denver County. And I'm delighted to be here and have the opportunity to share with you for a few minutes. The state legislature is in the interim period, which means that our work continues full speed ahead for Coloradans while we are mostly working within our districts rather than on the floor at the Capitol. There are two topics that I'd like to share about tonight, a pandemic update and a legislative special session. They are both uniquely tied together. So in the first case, I wanted to share a little bit about the pandemic as it's playing out across Colorado. The state's case count and positivity rate and hospitalizations are higher now than at any time during the last 8 months. And death rates are on the rise, but these data points lag behind the other data points that I just mentioned. There's no sign that the curve is slowing or flattening or reversing, but instead there is exponential growth. And experts are very worried about overwhelming our medical system and having to resort to crisis care management, which means that not all patients will be able to receive medical care that they need, possibly to survive. As residents in Colorado, we absolutely must do our part to slow the spread, to protect our loved ones' health, and be mindful of our own actions to ensure that we help turn this tide. Changing gears and changing plans that we have looked forward to is not easy. These are tough decisions because we all appreciate social gatherings and opportunities to see our friends and family, and the holidays are just ahead. If we want to keep our small businesses open, if we want to access healthcare when we and our families and friends need it, if we want our kids to be back in school in person full time, we must make conscious decisions to turn the tide. And it's going to take all of us working together to make it happen. So here's what I did this week. Our family decided that our son and daughter-in-law would not join us from out of state for a 2-week visit that was to start 3 days ago. I have to tell you, I'm pretty disappointed about that. And we will not gather together with our local family for a traditional Thanksgiving celebration. However, we will make all of the dishes and do a quick handoff so everyone can enjoy their meal in their respective homes. And we plan to Zoom during dessert. It's not the same as the traditional Thanksgiving experience we usually have, but it is a way to still spend some time with family without being in close contact. We also canceled a week-long visit in early December with another couple from out of state to enjoy what Colorado has to offer. I can tell you I don't like it, but I know it is a single season sacrifice so we can all enjoy the balance of a lifetime of seasonal gatherings going forward. I hope you will join me in changing your plans so we can see the tide turn on COVID in Colorado. Let's do this for our frontline medical workers, our educators, our first responders, our public safety workers, our families, and everyone else we know in Colorado. Let's slow the spread and save lives. Additionally, this week it was announced that the state legislature will convene a special session by order of Governor Polis. The purpose of this special session is to provide economic relief to Coloradans due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We know that Coloradans have been suffering from job loss and loss of income, resulting in challenges in paying rent, paying utilities, putting food on their tables, and attending to medical needs. The economic relief will come in the form of direct aid and tax relief for small businesses, in housing and rental assistance, support for childcare providers, and expansion of broadband access, especially for students and educators. While we know the state cannot provide all the financial relief to Coloradans that they need, we hope what we accomplish during the special session will be a bridge of support until greater relief will hopefully come from the federal level. In the meantime, and going forward, please wear a mask, wash your hands, keep 6 feet of physical distance when you are in the company of others. Stay well, be safe. And I look forward to seeing you next time. But in closing, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving in your homes with your own household. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you tonight.
Thank you, Tammy. And now we have Lisa Cutter, who is just joining us. And she's going to give, she's representative with the state legislature, and she is going to give us an update for that. Lisa.
Thank you so much, Shirley. And I'm coming in late, so I unfortunately didn't get to hear all of the presentations tonight, and I don't want to be redundant, so I'm going to be careful and try not to do that. I will say I heard Senator Story, the last part of Senator Story's comments, and thank you so much, Senator Story, for standing up and sharing that. It cannot be emphasized enough how important it is that we all do what we can to help one another through this really difficult time. We were driving this afternoon, and I just got off the phone in the car with a friend of mine whose father has COVID and is quite ill, and she's devastated. So it's something that we should all be taking seriously. And so backing up into my report tonight, I want to say I'm thrilled to be reelected this year. It's been a crazy couple of months, as I'm sure everyone's really happy to not get postcards and phone calls and all the things anymore. And we're happy to be done with it as well. And now I get to focus on doing the work of the legislature and helping people. And so to that end, Senator Story also mentioned our special session. So we have hit the ground running after the election and working on other pieces of legislation and policy that we want to pursue this year. But even setting that aside in preparation of the special session, we'll be working on issues I'm specifically working on in some working groups are small business support and childcare support. There's also one on housing and something else that maybe Senator Story said. If you remember, pop it in the comments. But there'll be 4 working groups, and we're specifically doing what we can to it's only getting worse in terms of COVID. So we're specifically working on what we can do to help people right now and get through this really, really hard time with any relief available. So I'm excited to be able to at least participate in that and help move us forward in that direction. In January, when I am returning, we both will be returning for our regular session. I'll continue to pursue issues around the environment. I've got several bills that are in planning stages. Be working on environmental issues and also hazard mitigation. That's weighing on me greatly. I worked extensively last year on fire mitigation bills, which were set aside because of COVID. So we're hoping, and of course, priorities shift and change based on how this is showing up in our communities. Pandemics turns out aren't really that well. I guess they're predictable to a degree, but things change a lot. And so to the degree that we can, we'll be working on hazard mitigation policy. I think it's really, really important given the excessive, horrible devastation we saw from wildfires this year in Colorado. So I've got some policy and works in that arena. And then also media literacy is another policy that I'll continue to work on implementing media literacy into the curriculum for kids K through 12. I think it's really, really important that children understand how to evaluate information, not how to think or what to think, but just how to look for good, solid sources of information and make their own opinions. So above all, I just want you to know, again, how thrilled I am and honored to be back as a representative for this district. And I want you to be sure to reach out. You're all important. You're all part of government. We work for you. So it's very, very important that you reach out and let me know your opinions. You can reach me via email at lisa.cutter.house@state.co.us. You can call my office at 303-866-2582. And you can also sign up for my newsletter through my website, cutterforcolorado.com. Sign up for the newsletter and get regular updates about what I'm doing. But the point is that you matter, your opinions matter, and I want to be available to you to listen to those opinions and work with you however I can. So thank you. Thanks for convening this as always. It's good to be here, even virtually.
Thank you, Lisa. So Lisa mentioned, and several others have mentioned, that this year has just been a terrible year for so many things, especially, well, the wildfires, the devastating wildfires have been horrific. And Jeffco has been working very diligently with the Jefferson County Wildfire Risk Reduction Task Force to hopefully keep that from happening as bad anyway here in Jefferson County. So now Commissioner Leslie Dalkemper and Elk Creek Fire Chief Jacob Ware are going to do a presentation and an update about the Wildfire Risk Reduction Task Force.
Great, thanks so much, Shirley. And are you able to pull up the PowerPoint okay for our presentation today?
We can. We can.
Okay, perfect. That would be great. Thank you so much. And while you're pulling that up, I know we have Chief Ware with us. We thought what we would do is divvy up. There he is. We thought we might divvy up the PowerPoint, and I'll talk a little bit about the task force, how it came together, why this task force was formed. And Chief Ware is going to touch on mitigation and making sure we have healthy forests, because we know that has a huge impact on the spread of wildfire. And we'll also talk about revenue streams. Chief Ware will touch on that, and then we'll talk a little bit about next steps. I'll talk about community education as well. Thanks so much for putting up that PowerPoint. We really appreciate it. The Jeffco Wildfire Risk Reduction Task Force is 31 members strong, and we have members who reflect diverse backgrounds ranging from forestry, fire expertise, water, business, community leaders. And I'm proud to say that Shirley Johnson is your Conifer representative along with Chief Ware. And we have many folks from across our foothills communities. We wanted to make sure we had geographic diversity too, well represented on the task force. So with that, we thought we would share some of our big recommendations. You can also find a much more in-depth report at jeffco.us. Again, jeffco.us, or you can email me and I'll share my email during my presentation as well, and we'll get you a copy of the full report if you're interested. So what brought us here? Why is this so important? Next slide, please. As you may know, more than 2/3 of Jefferson County is in the wildland-urban interface, where development and forested areas come together. And the risk of property loss due to wildfire is extraordinary. In fact, Conifer and Evergreen ranked #1 in Colorado and in the top 10 nationally. Paradise, California was ranked #1 nationally. Next slide. When we think about the impact of wildfire, and as our fire chiefs say, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The impact is extraordinary. If you look at just a 100,000 acre wildfire in West Jeffco, we're looking at 10,000 homes in the fire footprint according to modeling, 100 businesses destroyed, 60,000 people evacuated, and as you can see, major losses. Next slide, please. So why Jefferson County? Why are we prone to wildfire? These are a couple of reasons. One has to do with our topography, the shape of the land. Fires burn uphill quickly. We have a lot of fuels as well, thanks to our dense conifer forests. And our weather contributes. As our climate is changing, as the temperatures are getting warmer and the climate is more dry, low humidity. We also have lots of lightning strikes as well. And all of these factors contribute to wildfire risk. Next slide. For county commissioners, and you heard Heather talk a little bit earlier about planning and zoning, this issue is important for us as we think about strategic growth, planning, and development. And we wanted to share this map with you because you can see that in the wildland-urban interface, the number of residential building permits that were issued over the last 10 years. And I just think that's a very compelling map in terms of explaining how these different components come together and why we really have to consider wildfire risk as part of the work that we do. Next slide. Next, we have mitigation recommendations. And for this one, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Ware.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. This work group was chaired by Garrett Stevens with the Jefferson Conservation District, and they were addressing mitigation. Mitigation is basically the fuel treatments that are going on in the area and how they can be improved and kind of what's going on with them. The fuels reduction is a huge part. Mitigation is really starting to take a big foothold in the area, which is pretty exciting. And what they wanted to do, what their group was, is to kind of explore what's going on and what could make it better. So the first recommendation is to come up with a countywide clearinghouse. So kind of a website database where everybody can look and see what's going on. One of the problems we identified is there's a lot of mitigation going on the Front Range, but nobody can see it. There's not a place where all that data can be housed and you can see it on a map. So a member of the public could come in and see kind of the mosaic of mitigation projects around the area and how they can have an effect, a big picture effect. Next slide. The next one was to advocate at the county, state, and federal level for increased pace and scale and funding. We do have a lot of mitigation going on in the area, but it's not enough. We have a tremendous amount of untreated forest that needs to be mitigated. And the pace and scale and funding have to be increased somehow so we can actually do more. The third one is to address the bottlenecks surrounding biomass utilization and forest industry shortages. The forest industry on the Front Range has never been booming per se. And one of the big bottlenecks we have is what we do with all the material. Elk Creek and Evergreen Fire both have chipping programs and fairly active mitigation programs, and we are constantly struggling with what to do with the biomass we produce. It's only part of the project to go out and either chip material or cut down trees or remove the material. You have to know what to do with it. For instance, we can produce 14 yards of material a day for our chipping program. And if the guys are out chipping 5 days a week, that ends up being a tremendous amount of material. By the time the chipping program's done, we can have right around 1,500, 1,800 cubic yards of material that we have to do something with. So that's a constant struggle on the Front Range. Next slide, please. And the last one is the second to the last one, I'm sorry, is to strengthen county regulation and enforcement on defensible space. It builds upon the efforts that over the last 2 years by Jefferson County Planning and Zoning. They started implementing some of the International Building Code and the Wildland Urban Interface building codes. Those are critically important. If you look at the catastrophic losses across the country this year, it's not if, it's when, and unfortunately building code and some of the code enforcement has to start taking a role in this to try and limit the losses from catastrophic fires. Next slide. And the last one is to encourage the county to be more proactive and promote and collaborate with fire protection districts implementing defensible space home assessment certification programs. These programs, most people in the Elk Creek district are aware of it. We started a real fire home assessment program. Evergreen's also got the program in place. What this involves is one of our people coming out and doing an assessment on your property, on your house, on your dwelling, and looking at all the aspects around it that could involve what would happen if a fire did impact the area and what you can do to improve the probability of the property surviving. And then what happens is we actually give you a sheet that has an action plan. And what this is to give property owners actionable data so they can actually start working on this and start building a plan and increasing the probability of their dwelling surviving a fire event. Then at the end of it, there's actually a certificate that says they've met all this criteria. We're trying to model our program after Boulder. Boulder has a very robust program that's actually very successful, where insurance companies, realtors, a lot of people are recognizing these certificates. And that's kind of what we're trying to help the residents, because it's getting very problematic to have insurance up here. And by hopefully having a recognized program with a lot of continuity between all the fire protection districts as well as the county, it'll help residents be able to keep insurance, and it'll make things a lot easier for those of us that live up here. Next slide. All right, and Commissioner?
Great, thanks, Chief Ware. The Community Education Working Group was headed up by Susan Eagle from Genesee, and this was an incredibly hardworking group that really looked at how do we continue to work to raise community awareness about all of these issues to reduce wildfire risk. Again, we know there are tremendous efforts underway to ensure that our community is well aware of the risk and how they can protect their homes from the threat of wildfire. And we wanted to take it to the next level. So as the Community Education Group worked on this issue, one of the most important strategies they recommended was creating a one-stop web page to make it as simple as possible for residents in Jefferson County to find information that they needed about reducing wildfire risk. It largely would focus on wildfire mitigation and emergency preparedness. And there are a number of very good models like the CAL FIRE website, as well as the Evergreen Rotary website that we can build upon. So that is a big task coming up over the next year. Next slide, please. The other area that we thought we could leverage, and this is sort of along the lines of what you heard Chief Ware said about advocacy, is all of the communication networks the partners involved on the task force offer. And that's a huge network when you put it all together. And we wanted to make sure that we're pushing out common information, messaging, again, proactive content to encourage members of our community to mitigate. I'm going to just do a quick time check. I think we have maybe about a minute or two left, so I'm going to throw it back to Chief Ware for revenue streams, and then we'll just close quickly with next steps. Chief?
Perfect. All right. So revenue streams was kind of a tough one. We started this in the middle of the first round of COVID. We didn't really know where the financial implications were going to go with COVID. And so for the first few meetings, we kind of just stared at each other. It was tough to come up with any dollars and cents and assign it to anything. And then we started looking at more of what the tools were going to be to actually increase revenue streams to fund it. Not necessarily dollars and cents, but what needs to be in place before we can do that. So the first one was to define what the wildland-urban interface is, actually delineate it. Of course, Evergreen and Conifer, they're well into it, but it extends down past 470 well into the towns, and figure out where the wildland-urban interface actually physically is. The next thing is for the county to update the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. At a large scale, more of a 30,000-foot view. All the fire protection districts have them and they're working on it, but at the county level, use that to address and prioritize risk areas, as well as guide development and growth in those areas. Next slide. We ended up doing quite a bit of research, and we talked to Summit as well as Chaffee counties. And one of the things that they both said was to have a full-time grant writer to help people with grants and to help the county with grants. Because having writing grants and coming up with grants is a collateral duty. There's too much work for it. And so Summit as well as Chaffee both said that it made sense to have a full-time grant writer, and that's been one of the successful things that they've done. And the next one is to research tax options. Unfortunately, mitigation is expensive. We have to have a sustainable funding mechanism for mitigation. Elk Creek, as well as Evergreen, we've put things together, linked grants together, linked all these bits together, and it's worked. We actually, with our levy lift, we actually have a sustainable mechanism for our mitigation efforts now, but to grow them, we still need more funding. So the county needs to explore what we can do for sustainable funding, whether it's a tax, impact fees, whatever that might be. Next slide.
That might be it.
I think so. And I was checking my timer. I tried not to go too far over.
Great job. And I'll just say in closing, just a huge, huge thanks to all of the members of the task force. We look forward to working on all of these issues in 2021. And thanks, Chief Ware, for facilitating the Revenue Streams Committee too.
Great.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you. Great presentation. Thanks for all the work happening on that. And Commissioner Dahlkemper, I think you might have an update about the county if you'd like to go next.
Sure, you bet. Thanks so much, Shirley. And hello again, everyone. I'm Jeffco Commissioner Leslie Dahlkemper, and I have the privilege on the Jeffco Board of County Commissioners of representing Conifer. And I thought I'd touch on three main areas: COVID-19, community response, and I wanted to circle back to a topic we talked about last time we were together, which is the county budget, and just let you know where we're at with that. Senator Story touched on COVID-19 as well, and I wanted to reinforce a number of those key points that she shared with us tonight. As I know you're aware, our COVID-19 case count is at its highest ever in Jefferson County. In fact, in a meeting today with our public health team, they described it as a grave situation. They also quickly said, this is not forever. But how soon we get back to normal is really in our hands as a community, and we need your help. Effective Friday, November 20th, this Friday at 5 p.m., the County Department of Public Health will move several Denver metro area counties, including Jefferson County, into level red or severe risk. Cases of COVID-19, hospitalizations, the county's testing positivity rate are all increasing sharply. In the past 2 weeks, there have been more than 4,900 total cases of the virus in Jefferson County. At the same time, hospitalizations due to COVID-19 also increased in Jefferson County by 58%. Jefferson County's 2-week average test positivity rate is 12%. The bottom line is ICUs are at capacity. We know that our healthcare workers are overworked and burned out at this stage. And the situation is worse compared to the last time we were in stay-at-home mode. So the best thing that we can do to keep our businesses open, our kids in school, get them back in school, and our hybrid learning model back up and running, and to keep our community healthy, is to work together to get this virus under control. And we need to dig deep. We recognize that all of our community members and our businesses have made substantial sacrifices. But in terms of digging deep, it comes back to what you heard Senator Story talk about. It means Thanksgiving will look different for families this year. Jeffco Public Health asks that you only celebrate the holiday with those with whom you live. Stay at home more, wear a mask whenever you're in public, always keep 6 feet of distance, and practice good hygiene. I also know that testing is important to our foothills communities, and one of your biggest advocates always is Conifer Chamber President Melanie Swearigan, and I checked in with Jeffco Public Health today to see where we're at with testing in the foothills. Is it continuing? And there is a regular mobile testing van that visits the Conifer and Evergreen areas, and if you need the schedule or you have interest in that testing schedule, you can email me, and again, I'll share my contact information at the end. I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about community response. For more than several months, Jefferson County has been busy helping small businesses, cities, nonprofit organizations, residents, and others, thanks to the CARES Act funding. Those are federal dollars that we receive that can only be used on COVID-19 expenses. And from the get-go, our biggest concern was pushing out those CARES Act dollars as quickly as possible, because we knew these funds would make a meaningful difference in our community, especially for residents and businesses really trying to survive these challenging times. The dollars, so you know, have been allocated to childcare, healthcare, restaurants, senior care, fire protection and safety, and many other affected organizations. We've seen a big increase in requests for rental assistance and food banks. And we know that Mountain Resource Center and ECHO are working very hard, along with other food banks and nonprofits across Jefferson County on these issues. The Business Stability Award Program has helped some 116 small businesses and nearly 20 home-based businesses across the country. And to date, more than 90% of those who applied received funds. I wanted to share with you, though, the impact of the pandemic on our economy. The Board of County Commissioners recently received an update from our budget team. Jeffco's unemployment rate, while lower than Colorado and the United States, is at 5.9%, or 20,000 people who are unemployed. Another alarming sign is something that I touched on just a moment ago. Food banks are seeing a rapid increase in the number of families needing assistance this year, of nearly 4 times the number compared to last year. And 30% of those are first-time families needing assistance. Commissioner Ty, Senator Story, and I serve on the Jeffco Integrated Food Task Force, along with MRC and ECHO and others. And so we hear information right away from food banks, and we're working very closely with them, along with others. Efforts continue in terms of CARES Act funding, including reopening grants for nonprofit agencies, and that timeline is between November 16th to the 20th to help meet the need. And then finally, in closing, I just wanted to quickly wrap up and mention the county budget. We talked about that last time. I shared where we're at with the budget, some of the challenges, the reductions we had to make, how we really wanted to make sure that we leveraged every taxpayer dollar in a responsible manner. Commissioners approved the 2021 budget this week, and we're very grateful for the community's input and our staff's hard work on this document. As always, you can contact me at ldalkem, LDAHLKEM, at jeffco.us, or you can call me directly at 303-271-8510, 303-271-8510. And I'm wishing you all a very, very happy and safe Thanksgiving next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And I want to thank all of the presenters tonight for some great presentations, educational. There's a lot of information that you can digest, you can get involved, whatever. And I think that, along with the fact that there's so much going on in the Conifer community, we need to get the word out. So please have your friends and family and neighbors watch this virtual town hall meeting. Just go to coniferacouncil.org to find that link to that meeting. And then I'd like to do one last shout out to the Conifer Area Chamber of Commerce for their community support of tonight's town hall meeting. So thank you to everyone, and happy Thanksgiving. Good night.